Hey, what's going on everyone? This report is going to detail a bike ride that I did over the weekend to the Mount Wilson Observatory. Okay, so before we even begin crunching numbers and logistics, I have to let you know that any serious athletic endeavor begins with a good hearty breakfast. So I got myself jacked up on blueberry and caffeine pills and off I went. Now, if you love blueberry and frankenberry as much as I do, you'll understand that this is a seasonal treat. It only comes around once a year and right around Halloween, and I was able to find it at a local Vaughn's supermarket. Okay, on to the logistics. We begin our journey at La Cañada, right off the 210 freeway, and then we will climb up to the Mount Wilson Observatory, which is I think right around like 5,500 feet. The total distance is right around 37. Time in saddle is 3.42. Average speed is about 10, but this is misleading because most of it you're doing like 5 miles per hour as you're humping up the hill, and then downhill you're coming down very quickly. Elevation gain 4.5. Some of the other stuff. Peak elevation is right around 5,500 as I mentioned. Speed at one point I was probably doing close to 45 while I was hammering downhill. Heart rate, this is faulty because my ticker cannot go like 240, so I'm gonna guess probably like low 170s was probably my peak. The temperature is kind of interesting because I began the day like kind of early morning, so the temperatures were very nice, like low 70s, and then as the day wore on it climbed to about 90. But then it begins to drop, and this is the elevation talking now. So right around here, I'm at peak elevation, probably around 5,500 feet, and therefore the temperatures are like mid 70s. And then as I come down to the bottom of the mountain, we're at 95. So anyways, this is why I chose to do a ride up at elevation. Anything in the lower elevations would have been miserable on that day. And so we kick off our ride at the bottom of the hill, being mindful of all the traffic laws and regulations, of course. Here I'm setting up the camera to give you an idea of what the grade and effort might look like. But at the same time, I am nervously looking around for this guy, and you'll recognize him from my last bicycling video. If I had to summarize the ride, I would say it's about 3 hours of slow grind at around 5, 6, 7% grade. So let me state for the record here that this is not a ride that's for everyone. Later on, you're gonna see footage of me kind of speeding downhill, and it's gonna seem dangerous and wild, and it is, but I'm well within my comfort levels there, and there are other aspects of this ride that make it way more dangerous and wild. So let me show you what I think constitutes dangerous and wild. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not making a commentary here about rich people or fast cars. God bless them and God bless America. And just because a car is going fast, it does not mean that they are a dangerous or bad driver. As a matter of fact, it can often mean the exact opposite. So compare that to this sequence. Here I'm going downhill at a pretty good clip. You're gonna find me on the other side of the road. You're gonna find me getting way too close to objects that you probably feel I shouldn't get that close to. But I will state that everything you're looking at is completely intentional. I am intimately familiar with these roads. I spent 3 days a week here for years and years and years. So when I'm going downhill, I have the joystick. I can add speed, I can subtract speed, I can choose my lines. But most importantly, I can anticipate what's coming up, I can see what's in front of me, and react. Again, I'm not saying I'm not going to get twisted. I have gotten twisted, but I'd much rather take my chances here than with drivers coming up from behind me who may or may not know what they're doing. Okay, back to the ride. One of the best things about doing stuff like this is you will often run into very interesting people. So here are a couple of dudes that hail from the Czech Republic, and they are on their way to Vegas. So here's what's happening, because I understand these roads and the way the cops work here. Czech dude number one has his hands up because he's just been yelled at by the cop. The cop car and the tow truck are on their way to scrape someone off the road. And so the cop, in a brisk and kind of a rude way, told the Czech dude to get off the road and that he cannot stop here. And the cop is absolutely right here, because some crazy driver could lose control and take this Czech dude out. He needs to be on the other side of the guardrail. And so anyways, I stop, get myself and him on the other side of the guardrail, and he tells me that they're on their way to Vegas. And I tell him about Buckhorn Campground, which is probably another like 30-40 miles from here, where they can kind of camp and spend the night. Interesting dudes on a really cool adventure. Okay, back to the ride. There's nothing terribly exciting about watching someone grind up a hill. Here I arrive at Redbox Junction, or we used to call it Redbox, and this is the road that takes you to the Mount Wilson Observatory.
Okay, I'm at one of the crossroads. I used to call this place Redbox, way back when. Anyways, well, there it is, Redbox. But there is a kind of like a little convenience store, cultural center, and I picked up all of this for like $5.50, which seems to be like a steal. I would have easily paid twice that. But anyways, good for them and good for me.
Here I finally arrive at the Mount Wilson Observatory and taking a panoramic view, and I'm on the hunt for some kind of cafe that supposedly serves hot dogs, but alas, I cannot find it. This is the section where I put in a big effort going downhill and probably hit around mid-40s. Unfortunately, I run out of gears and I run into a headwind, but with no headwind and some extra gears, I possibly keep up with the cars. Possibly. Okay, that about wraps up this trip report. As always, thank you for dropping by. Get out there, have fun, be safe, safer than me, and we will see you on our next adventure. Bye for now.